It helps me to center and to feel that I am in a circle with you. And given that I have about a half an hour to cover whatever comes through me to you, it is a trust and a kind of synchronicity that what I might draw from, there may be a seed that one of you really needed to hear. I don't know, I trust. We're in the middle of a pandemic, and I have been sheltered in place in Mill Valley, California, since March 2020. I came back from Egypt, where I was participating in the Women's Economic Forum, and had one day in my office to do the Jungian analytic work I have been doing for a very long time. And after that, I've done my practice from home, sheltering in place, and I've been invited to do talks all over the world. And I'm saying yes, which I did and why I'm here now. And I'm aware that we are in a time where the favorite word I am using to describe this time is the word liminal, from a Latin word that means threshold. In the United States, we are close to 700,000 deaths from COVID. Well, you cannot go back to what was with so much death and so much violence going on and so much uncertainty. So we are in this liminal time where we can't go back, but liminal is like being on a threshold between what was and where we will step through next. And when the pandemic is over, that's when we maybe step into the world with the possibilities of real change that I believe is possible. Those of you who are astrologically minded, we entered the Age of Aquarius with the women's movement in consciousness raising circles at the end of the 1960s, that it just appeared to be, oh, women just talking, that's all, except that it led women to shift the story. We are in the similar kind of a liminal time now, but much larger, worldwide, pandemic-wide. And what each of us does, contributes to, takes part in something to shift during this liminal time into the potential of an evolved world. We only have a couple of more decades if we continued in the same way we have been, patriarchal power over hierarchy. If that continues, then global warming will do us in. So we have in this liminal time the possibility of bringing about some real changes, to care about one another, to care about the planet, to think about the planet as home. And this is part of a new entry into the world of the heart and mind. I remember back when, and it is kind of useful to be as old as I am, to have, a history of back when I saw the planet from outer space, when the men went to the moon, and that was the big deal. But the important image was on the way to the moon, they looked back at the Earth and they took a picture of Earth from outer space. And you see a circle, which is our beautiful planet, no boundaries between countries, and an aura of the atmosphere around it. And she is beautiful. That brought about some shift in some of us that will make all the difference for us to become activists in circles. The whole idea of a circle versus patriarchal hierarchy or power over. There's many different ways of bringing in ideas that work together. One was to understand Jung's use of the word synchronicity. Without a word for meaningful coincidences, you'd never realize that there is a linkage that isn't cause and effect. Say you have an amazing dream and somebody is in the dream that you haven't seen for decades, and the next day on the street you see that person. The first response is, wow, that's amazing. Now, if you leave it at that, that's all it is. But if you remember it was not only the dream, but what the person represents, and you have a chance to understand more deeply a message that you are getting and can act on. So that's part of what I'd like people to consider, that the dream world is telling you information symbolically. Why go into the mythology of ancient Greece and other places. Mythology lives on because it describes what we come into the world with, in a sense. We are not a blank screen when we come into the world. We have certain talents, certain attitudes, and maybe previous lives that we drew from. Whatever it is, there is in us potentialities that are often suppressed. And for women, it's so true. We come into the world with these patterns, and then you encounter in your culture or your family suppression of a part of you that is really who you are, but it's not acceptable at that particular time or at that particular family, but it's still there. It's waiting to be developed. The idea is that the archetypes that you came in with are the ones that give you most meaning and most opportunity to become who you were meant to be. If you were a Girl Scout or a Girl Guide, if you were a camper, if you loved animals, if you had a kind of mystical sense of the beauty of nature, then the archetype that you came in the world with could be called Artemis. Artemis, the goddess of the moon and the goddess of the women's movement. Artemis looked after the young of all living animals and children. And she liked the wilderness, not the city, like Athena. If Artemis is a major archetype in you, then looking out for the planet, for the climate, for the animals, for the fishes that are dying because of the plastics thrown into the ocean, this is the time for the Artemis archetype, the activist, one who can stand up proudly and speak out. But what if you're not? What if you really are an Athena with a mind to be a scholar? You can be who you were meant to be if you make your way into the world with a sense that this is a part of me that is significant, not just for me, but for why I'm here. And whenever you start doing what is truly archetypally you, you lose track of time. You sink into the archetypal depth of your psyche, and you are in the present moment, just totally engaged in what it is you're doing. So think about that. What are those moments that you've had? And did you have it suppressed along the way? Might you really be a musician, be an artist, be a sports person, be, I don't know what, but maybe you know, maybe deep inside yourself, you know that there is time to still develop from the inside out who you were meant to be and what you were meant to do. It's never too late.